Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today. My name is Jamie Voisin. Today we'll be going deep. We'll be learning about how diving deeper into your relationships with customers, technology, and stakeholders can help you be a better product manager. If you'd like to ask questions or chat, use the comment box below. But first, a little bit about me. Like I said before, my name is Jamie Voisin, and I'm a senior product manager at Amazon, working in the global specialty fulfillment space. That's things such as Amazon Whole Foods Delivery, Prime Now, and Amazon Treasure Truck. I have both a bachelor's and master's degree in information systems and operation management from the University of Florida, and I have over a decade of years of experience with General Electric, Home Depot, and Amazon. I've worked on products such as e-commerce websites, ERPs, mobile applications, and even analytical tools. I invite you to connect with me on LinkedIn using the QR code below. Today, we'll be diving into 3 different areas: know your customer, know your technology, know your stakeholders, and then we'll wrap it up by going over some ways that you can put this into action starting today. First, know your customer. The customer should be the first thought in your mind as a product manager. 2 of the companies that I've worked for have customers as part of their core values. Amazon's leadership principle, customer obsession, states, leaders start with the customer and work backwards. They work vigorously to earn and keep customer trust. Although leaders pay attention to competitors, they obsess over customers. Here, you can see starting with the customer and working backwards is the most important thing. Truly understanding what your customer needs and then starting to work through how you can provide it to them is essential as a product manager. Likewise, Home Depot has the inverted pyramid, and they say, we live by the simple premise of our founders: put customers and associates first, and the rest will take care of itself. As a Home Depot corporate employee, the associates are also your customers. So putting the customers and associates in the first and foremost thing that you do is important, and then success will follow. One way to do this is to dive in the day in the life of your customer, understanding what the typical day looks like for your customers. How does your product fit in, and what other technologies do they use? Is your customer a factory worker, or do they work in remote locations? If they work in remote locations, having a product that requires to be connected to the internet 24/7 will not work for them. When I started at Amazon, I dove into our associates that I was building a product for and understood how they were using my product and what their work environments are like. The associates were always on the go and needed to have a product that they can use quickly. So that was one of the first and foremost thoughts in my mind as I designed the product. Next, understand, how do your customers use your product? The best way to do this is set up a customer walkthrough and have them walk you through the application. This will give you real-time insights into what the customer does with your application and how it helps them. Is this something that they use to save on time, cost, or perhaps a way for them to gain additional revenue? This will help clue you into what features and functionality you should be prioritizing. Also, diving into your application's analytics and other types of qualitative feedback is important. Understanding what areas of the application your customers go to more frequently and how often will help you start to prioritize features. And also, qualitative feedback is really important in understanding how your customers feel about your application and if there's any pain points that they can go into. This can also show you growth areas in your apps where you can start to dedicate more time and features to help your customers and help grow your product. The photo here is when I had a customer showcase with General Electric. I had customers at the showcase log into the product and use it in front of me. I learned a lot that day about the things that they liked and the things that they didn't like, and also some pain points that they had with my application. Ultimately, remember, you're the customer's representative to your company. So you need to be able to represent your customers' needs and how they use the application to the rest of the team. Next is know your technology. I'm going to share with you a quick clip from the folks at Krazam TV on how product managers sometimes interact with their engineers.
I'm still not understanding this. Why is it so hard to display the birthday date on the settings page? Why can't we get this done this quarter?
Look, I'm sorry, we've been over this. It's the design of our back end. First we have to call the bingo service. See, bingo knows everyone's name-o, so we get the user's ID out of there. Then from bingo, we can call papaya and MBS to get that user ID and turn it into a user session token. We can validate those with Omnop, and then, once we have that, we can finally pull the user's info down from Raccoon.
Yeah, but couldn't the Raccoon team basically just...
No, Raccoon isn't guaranteed to have that info. Before we do this, we have to go to Wing.
That's one of my favorite videos. The key takeaway here is understanding your product's technology and architecture can help a lot in these conversations. One way to dive deeper is to know the product's tech stack. Understanding the code bases and versions that are used in your product will help you with these conversations. Is there any code debt or refactoring that's needed in order to implement features? Are there any native packages or APIs that can be used to help implement certain types of functionality? Also, does this technology have any sort of best practices when trying to solve different types of solutions? This can save you a lot of grief and effort as you start to communicate your vision of how certain features should work with your engineers. This also helps you understand the trade-offs in waiting to refactor the application before implementing a feature to prevent rework, or if that rework sometimes may be necessary to get the application out the door and helping your product grow faster. When I worked at General Electric on an e-commerce platform, we needed to move to a newer version of Hybris. There are a lot of trade-offs in upgrading now or implementing certain functionality prior to the upgrade. Having an understanding of how the product was architected and the challenges behind that really helped to make some of the decisions and the upgrade ultimately a lot more easier. Another way to do this is know your product's architecture. Taking the time to understand the technical landscape of your product can be immensely helpful. Learning what other products and databases you're integrated with can help you in making decisions. Sometimes you may find out that you're integrated into other products or databases that cause additional scrutiny from security and privacy rules. Removing the data from your application may be helpful in that it reduces complexity and allows you to move faster and iterate more in your product while not hindering your customers' needs. Also, you may look out across the organization and see that there are other data sets and things that could be helpful to your customer. Pulling those into your application will be helpful to better serve your customer and their needs. And also, it helps you understand different types of stakeholder needs that may arise in the future. Taking the time to understand what products and things that are integrated into your application is extremely helpful. One of my products at Amazon is subject to GDPR regulations. We had to make some changes into how other products are consuming our data. I took the time to sit down with my senior software engineering manager to learn about these integrations and what we can do to mitigate it. Without this, I wouldn't be able to have the conversations with my stakeholders to explain to them what the issues were and how we can go about mitigating it. In the end, become an empowered product manager, but don't be afraid to ask for help. Sometimes you'll find yourself out of your technical depth, and that's when it's best to lean on your software development engineers or a product architect for help. The last area is know your stakeholders. One of the ways I like to better know my stakeholders is to understand the nature of the relationship. I use two tools to do this. First is the influence and interest grid. This helps me better plan out my communications based off of how much influence and how much interest my stakeholders have. If there's a high amount of influence and a high amount of interest, I need to make sure that they're fully vetted inside of all of my communications and as we move through different releases within the product. A lot of hand-holding here. If there's a low amount of influence and a low amount of interest, this is where I'll just have different types of check-in. Maybe a meeting once a quarter to let them know. Next is the Net Promoter Score. I do this a little bit differently. I break them out into 3 different buckets: detractors, neutral, and promoters, and then start to figure out which of my stakeholders are detractors when I need them to be promoters, and which ones are fine in the neutral area or fine in the promoter category. This helps me start to prioritize how I go after communicating with stakeholders. Also, understanding the types of communication styles and cultural intricacies are important. Some people like to have phone calls or video meetings. Other people are fine with just email updates frequently. Different stakeholders work differently, so it's best to really sit down and talk with them and figure out that information. At General Electric, I worked on a product that had a multitude of internal stakeholders. It took time to understand which stakeholders had what type of influence and which stakeholders I needed to spend more time with. These 2 tools were essential in helping to craft my communication plans and bring people on my side to move forward with less resistance. Next is aligning success. Figure out what your stakeholders' goals and objectives are, how they can align with yours, and what success for the both of you look like. Are there any barriers to success in the way? If so, this is something that should be surfaced early and sometimes escalated to leadership so that these barriers can be broken down and that both of you can be successful. Sometimes it's very helpful to find some quick wins early on in the relationship that can build trust between you and your stakeholders. When I worked at Home Depot, I was working in a cross-metric dashboard. Finding some quick wins early in the relationship helped build the trust so I can get some of those metrics built into my dashboard to share with my customers. And remember, everyone wants to help the company. So it's usually just a misalignment of goals that sometimes causes friction. Now we'll talk about how you can put it into action. First thing you can do to know your customer, as I mentioned before, is schedule a demo with your customer. Take the time to create customer journey maps, user personas, and user flows. The product school has some great templates that can help with this. Scan the QR code below and you'll be able to get them. Next, to know your technology, schedule some time with the senior engineer or product architect. Things that you can do are go over your product architecture diagram or network diagrams. In addition, you can also take different trainings and learnings like with Udemy or Udacity. There's many programs out there that can help continuing your education. And also, don't forget to ask questions whenever you need to. People would be glad to help. From a stakeholder perspective, create one of the stakeholder diagrams that we went over. You can create the NPS and figure out which stakeholders are detractors, neutral, or promoters, and start to figure out where you need to focus the efforts of your work in maintaining some of these relationships. Also, the influence and interest diagram can help you better understand how to communicate with your stakeholders. I also find that recurring one-on-ones with your stakeholders are helpful at different frequencies depending on how they are plotted on the influence and interest diagram. Thanks for listening today, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions or would like to connect through LinkedIn.